Hi, we're going to sing Goodness of God. So you can join us if you'd like to. We're going to sing to the Lord. I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head down, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Goodness. Why? Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Let me hear you sing it. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. It's pretty good.
That was fun.
That was fun.
Hello, and welcome to the latest video post that we're putting to our Springs of Grace website. I'm going to share with you a couple of observations that I've been praying would become an influence in my life because of the changes that we're all going through. Some things that I've observed at my house and in my heart. And so I'm going to start this way. I've been going through this book, Desiring the Kingdom by James A. Smith, and it's from a book that I would recommend that you take a look at. It's a smaller, quicker book called You Are What You Love. And the idea of the author is that most of evangelical thought has put its emphasis on you are what you think, and so think on things that are true. And the Bible is very clear about its emphasis there. Set your mind on things that are above, where Christ is, for example. And that is an influence on us in our Christian walk. There's no doubt that's biblical. But there is another emphasis that maybe gets a little bit less attention from us, and from me anyway, in my personal walk with the Lord. And it's my pattern. My pattern of behavior and what I'm actually doing has a lot of effect on my affections. And so that's the premise of these books I've mentioned. And it's a thought I've begun to have and want to share with you about these two responses I'm noticing that I'm having to folks that are checking in on me, or when I check in on them and ask, how are you doing? For me, that answer has largely been, we're doing great as a family. There have been some challenges for sure, but we're enjoying this slack in the line to this point anyway. More margin, slower pace. However, I've noticed aspects of my impatience and my sanctification that have been more and uniquely challenged compared to other times. And so in this book I've been reading, I've begun to see there's some interesting things that I think are true about how God has created us. And this little pie chart in the back is meant to illustrate that what the author of this book says is, from research he's studied, that a very low percentage of our effort, of our conscious effort, is actually purposeful. So actually conscious. So whether it's 5% as he suggests or 15%, the point is, and I think you'd agree, that a lot of what we do, we just kind of do out of routine. And that routine for us right now is being uprooted because so much of living right now in these times is new and unique, which opens up an opportunity for kind of being able to evaluate other aspects of our patterns or our subconscious patterns, things that we don't really think about all that often, that are being exposed. And so let me give you an example. Our oldest, 2 years ago, was just entering this driving permit stage. And in that time, and you remember this if you're a driver and have been for a while, you think back to those first days when you got in the seat, everything had to be just so. And as you drove, it didn't matter if it was across the street or across town, there was so much energy and focus being exerted on making sure that you were safe. So whether it was the blinker lane change thing and the left right thing at an intersection, how much distance between you and the car in front of you, where your mirrors were positioned, all of those things. Took a lot more effort than it takes now. It has become automated to us, and God's created us to be able to automate so much so that we can move on to other things and be used and produce in other areas. So in this time, when so much is new and uncertain, I would suggest that this pie chart, whatever that number is, 5%, that it's not that, but it's a much bigger amount of our effort is being focused on new aspects of our daily living. And that's creating new challenges for us. And so the point of the devotional here is I want the Lord to use this time where I'm able to see aspects of my habituation or repeated behavior in new light. And I really want the Lord to expose what am I aiming at with the pattern and course of my living. What does it say that I'm really aiming at? And that can show up in big ways, with bigger thoughts about the future, or really mundane ways with how I respond to my children or to my spouse or to that unpleasant circumstance that was not what I wanted. I noticed the passage that Joe read on Sunday from John chapter 8, verse 34, picked up on this idea. When Jesus is talking, he said, he answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin." And so he's talking about, in the verse I looked it up, and the word practice is actually not there. It's an emphasis on the word everyone who is as your identity. Basically, you've become, your practice has become who you are, so much so that you are enslaved to it. And so what he's describing there is that your practices are who you are, your identity. And elsewhere in the scriptures, there's a lot of emphasis on this concept of practice. So Matthew 6 and Matthew 7, there are several passages that show up where the Lord uses this concept. Be careful not to practice your righteousness before others to be seen by them, because the idea is that will become, if you continue to practice, that becomes who you are. Or in Matthew 7, he talks about the wise man who builds his house on the rock versus the foolish man who builds his house on the sand. What separates them is that one man hears the words of the Lord and practices them, and the other man hears the words of the Lord and does not practice them, does not layer them into his life in a way that becomes who he is. And so with the idea here again of so much uncertainty, so much of life that's being uprooted and challenged, get my circle back. If that's what normally is conscious about our living, I want to ask the Lord, what needs to be better informed by the kingdom and living for eternity that can be working its way into what I'm practicing today? And so hopefully this is helpful. I'm going to give you 2 places to go and study this in your own time. Psalm 1 and Psalm 119, verses 1 to 8. And I've printed those, although I know you can't read this. I want you to go and do this for yourself. I'm just going to show you in these 2 passages where this idea of practice leading to identity and ultimately to hope is showing up. So let's look first. I'm going to circle when the passage makes reference to a practice. I'm going to circle that in red. When it refers to a result, I'm going to circle that in blue. Psalm 1. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight, it's leading to a result now. His delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He becomes like a tree planted by streams of water, yields fruit in its season. The leaf does not wither. And it goes on to talk about the wicked. In Psalm 119, verses 1 to 8, blessed are the undefiled in the way who walk in the law of the Lord. Blessed are they that keep his testimonies and that seek him with their whole heart. They also do no iniquity. They walk in his ways. You have commanded us to keep your precepts. We want to do that diligently, it says. Oh, that my ways were directed to keep thy statutes. Then, here comes the result, I shall not be ashamed. You could say, I will be protected. I won't be ashamed. When I have respect unto thy commandments, I will praise thee with uprightness of heart. When I have learned your righteous judgments, I will keep thy statutes. Forsake me not utterly. So there's a lot of the emphasis on the practice leading to the result. And that's the thought that I want to leave with you, is that may our practices, as in flux as they are, may the Lord, through his Spirit and his Word, sharpen our awareness of what our practices actually are, and may those get informed or replaced by kingdom influenced practices. What is driving us, and where are we headed? Be willing in this season to be less productive. There's a lot of slack in the line, and I notice my tendency is to replace that with audiobooks and productivity. I think we need to be willing and be aware that as Americans, our default is more productivity, where I think this exercise leads me to realize I need to be aware that in this health crisis, God is on his throne, and there's only so much I can do. And I need to be more contemplative and maybe less productive, is one of the things that he wants to challenge us with during this time. So I hope this has been an encouragement to you. Love you guys. Miss seeing you face to face. It's definitely an aspect of loss through this, but there's a lot to be gained in the Lord through this time as well.